What is going on, everybody? What is going on? The Catch fam. I hope you guys are doing phenomenal tonight, man. Hope you guys have all had a great Tuesday. Hope you guys are ready for another live 2023 fantasy football mock draft with you guys, of course, with the Catch fam. Tonight, we're hopping into a full PPR 12-team mock draft per usual. 2 flex spots, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, quarterback, tight end, 5 bench spots. Pretty typical July mock draft. Maybe at some point soon we'll add in kickers or defenses, but this is seems to be working so far throughout the offseason. So if you guys enjoy fantasy football content, that's what we do here all year long. Redraft, Dynasty, and Best Ball. If you guys are new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. We'll have another guy talking fantasy in your algorithm. So yeah, and if you guys are new to the channel or not new to the channel, hit the like button on the way in, do all the YouTube stuff because it helps the stream. And most importantly, my nose was itching, sorry. Hop in the live chat, let me know what's popping, guys. Let me know how you guys are doing. Any fantasy football topics you guys want to go over? Redraft, Dynasty, or Best Ball? Any NFL topics you guys want to go over? Throw it in the live chat. We're going to have some fun. We're going to talk some fantasy football tonight. All right, we're kicking this thing off right now. So I told you guys 10 p.m. Eastern time. It is 10 p.m. Eastern time. So final warning on Discord is going out right now. And whether you guys are ready or not, there's your sleeper noises. We're starting. So it looks like we got all green dots except for Boss Man at the 1.1. But he's here. He's here. So, all right, not really any NFL news we need to go over necessarily. We kind of hit, all the big news. It's kind of over the past 2 days, but there are a couple small things I want to talk about. Isaiah Pacheco, my one and only, my guy, player that I've talked a lot about this offseason, may be placed on the preseason PUP list. So, I don't know. Some of you guys might hear that and get a little worried, physically unable to perform. He did have surgery this offseason. But being placed on the preseason PUP list is a little bit different from the in-season PUP list. He can be removed from the preseason PUP list at any point prior to the start of the season. So that's nothing to freak out about, right? If he's still recovering from his surgery, then it makes sense. And all indications are pointing towards his recovery from surgery has gone well. So if you guys saw that, I wouldn't necessarily freak out about it. Kendre Miller of the New Orleans Saints, rookie running back, has been placed on the non-football injury list, which is interesting as well. But, this is where we are at in the offseason. Training camp's about to start. Essentially, Sunday, if I'm not mistaken, was the last day. If you guys play Dynasty, players on your roster would not be considered potentially injured, right? So we're going to have these type of things pop up, and quite frankly, it's really nothing to worry about, in my opinion. Wow, Travis Kelce is sitting here staring me right in the eyes. I never draft Kelce. This is not part of my strategy ever, but I feel like I have to take Kelce here. Let's just do it. Why not? What's it gonna hurt? So yeah, that's all I really wanted to touch on. We did get a report. Tank Bigsby has looked impressive throughout the offseason. So there's a nice report to kind of maybe get us a little excited if we have Bigsby sitting on the bench in dynasty squads. Garrett Wilson, Amon-Ra St. Brown's are a very nice start. I don't know who I want to draft. I'm freaking out about this draft tonight. I'll go Jalen Waddle here. We also have a report. The top slot receiver option appears to be Sky Moore, the second-year player who will try to replace some of the production that Juju Smith-Schuster generated last season. So, we've talked a lot about Sky Moore throughout the offseason. And I do believe that as July progresses and August progresses, Sky Moore is going to be, become more and more popular of a name. I mean, he's already done so, like, over the last month in mock drafts. I just think that we're all kind of taking a gamble on Chiefs wide receivers towards the end of our drafts, and I think that Sky Moore is going to continue to be a popular player. So, little report on Sky Moore doesn't mean anything. I don't know. We'll see. All right, let's use in the live chat. Andrea, what's going on? Thomas, what's up? JSC, how's everyone doing? Walida, what's up? What's up? Good to see you, bro. I like the poll, but in my opinion, it's Pollard all day. Yeah, right now you got Pollard. I mean, the poll question, who will score more fantasy points in 2023, Pollard or Breece Hall? Pollard's at 62%, Breece Hall's at 38% so far. That just changed. Pollard's at 56%, Breece Hall at 44%. So I think this could be a pretty close poll. I'll probably leave it up for the night. David, is it bad to draft both Bijan and London PPR? No, I would not say so. I mean, like, if London crept up too high in rankings, potentially. But no, I like both of those guys a lot this year, and I think that offense is going to surprise some people this year. No, I don't have a problem with it personally at all. Like, you're able to get London like the 4th or 5th round right now. His ADP hasn't shot up too drastically or anything, so I'm good at that. I mean, you can, in some builds, have Pollard as a wide receiver 3 flex area, and Bijan is your RB1. I have no problem with that whatsoever. Well, Lito, didn't think I would go running back to start this draft, but they were both values. Yeah, Eckler, JT, not a bad start whatsoever. See, that was tough for me, like, because I just never really start my draft with a tight end, but it's really tough to pass on Kelsey if you're sitting there at the 1.11. But ideally, I probably would have gotten Amon-Ra, St. Brown, and then Waddle or Wilson at 2.2. I don't know if I want to say ideally, but just generally speaking, like, typically that's what I would do. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting draft for me tonight. Not going to have to think about tight end at all. Tommy, if you're in the chat, I'm interested to know if you would have taken Kelsey at 1.12, because then even like we both would have gone into the second and had the opportunity to take him again. I just don't know if you can pass on him falling that far into the second. All right. Set our third round underway here. Pretty wide receiver heavy draft, but a good sprinkle running back in here as well. If you guys were not in last night's stream, let me know your thoughts on. We have a couple different situations going on, of course. DeAndre Hopkins with the Titans. What do you guys think in terms of Saquon Barkley and Josh Jacobs? Do you guys believe that they are truly going to hold out? Do you believe that they'll be there or be able to reach a deal with their respective teams before week 1? What is your panic level, so to speak? Let me see if there's anything else. Yeah, I mean, we did have the report. We had a couple reports surrounding Matthew Stafford. Like, the Rams had attempted to trade Matthew Stafford. Then we had reports coming out saying that was false. Then we had a report coming out that the Rams tried to redo or restructure Matthew Stafford's contract and that he declined to do so. So that's kind of juicy, I guess. Other than that, we've got like the Jets don't want to be on Hard Knocks, but they are. It's not really fantasy relevant. But we did talk about before, there's a little bit of a correlation, like in terms of Hard Knocks and hype, especially hype in August, and the Jets have already received a lot of hype. There are particular players on the Jets that could move up in ADP in terms of fantasy. I've seen it happen before. All right, I feel like I have to do this. I feel like I have to go Patrick Mahomes right here. I mean, generally, I don't go quarterback tight end early, but I feel like both Kelsey at 1.11 and Mahomes at 3.11 are good value. And if you can draft those two together in a redraft format, I mean, you might as well. So we'll see how this team shapes out. It's an exciting one so far, actually. All right, I'm going to go DJ Moore as my wide receiver 2. And into the 4th round we are. All right, Astra says he'd rather Chubb over JT. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, love both of them. Can't really dispute them. They're going to be workhorses. RB6 last year, JT with his down year, injuries, all that stuff. But both are fine options. JSC says, would have taken JT after your Kelsey pick. Yeah, I mean, I'd rather have, like, mid-round running backs at this point. You know, I want those early round receivers. And if I have a late pick in the first, I'm generally just going double wide receiver. But tonight's draft's a little bit different. We're going to see how this one shapes out. We'll see what happens here. All right, let's see. David says, as a Giants fan, I think Barkley will sit out and Josh Jacobs will not. Interesting. Yeah, so I saw a report that was saying that the contract negotiation between the Giants and Saquon was like a difference of $2 million is what they couldn't per year. That's how far apart they were. So not super far apart, right? You've got the Giants GM standing this ground. You've got Barkley wanting a little bit more. If those reports are true, which we don't know for sure that they are, right? If they are true, I think when you look at this offense for the Giants, like, I get it. I don't know. I'm not an NFL GM, right? But this offense relies on a good run game. You know, part of the reason why Daniel Jones had a successful season within that offense is because defenses had to account for the run and just the run game in general, and even the passing game to a degree with Saquon Barkley kept that offensive flow difficult enough for defenses to read that Daniel Jones could actually look successful under a new head coach, right? I don't know. To me, I'm like, I think in the Giants situation particularly, I think you go ahead and you get the deal done. But like I said, I'm not an NFL GM. I just think it's more crucial for the Giants, who made the playoffs last year under a new regime, to have Saquon Barkley readily available, you know? Josh Jacobs, on the other hand, like, the Raiders could be tanking this year for all we know. So it's like, I don't know how crucial it is for them to retain Josh Jacobs in comparison to the Giants and Saquon Barkley. You know what I mean? I also read that purportedly, once again, don't know if this is true, that the Raiders and Josh Jacobs were very close to a deal as well. It was a small, I mean, and you know, perspective of NFL contracts, a small number, kind of similar to, you know, Saquon and the Giants being like $2 million per year apart in terms of the difference. It's close for Josh Jacobs as well. I read that Josh Jacobs was at the facility in his car with Max Crosby, ready to get the deal done and sign, but they just are a little bit too far apart. So you've had more running backs around the NFL coming out and speaking up about what's happening. We talked about this yesterday. So, I mean, that's nice to see, right? We'll kind of see how everything shapes out here, but I think ultimately it's just a unique situation that's starting to evolve around us. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. We shall see. All right, let's see here. JSC says, not going to lie, it's hard for me to ignore Tony Pollard's high ankle sprain and leg injury. Also, should I be concerned about his workload? I mean, I'm not concerned about his workload necessarily. I think by the time he's out there, he'll be ready to go. I think he'll be okay, personally. But the injuries, I mean, it's kind of interesting. That's kind of why I put Pollard and Hall on the poll, because both of them are coming off of serious injuries. But both of them are expected to be workhorse running backs in offenses that are expected to be good this year. Cowboys are, good on a year-to-year basis offensively. And obviously, on the other hand, the Jets are probably going to be much improved this year, right? Man, this is just the 1.11. What a weird draft. All right, so I'm just going to take my second running back. I mean, we talked about this last night when I drafted from the 1.12. Like, you have to kind of like almost reach on players, and if you don't, you just don't know if they're going to come back to you. So I'll take Sanders there. Typically, there are one or two other names I'm used to drafting in this area, but I kind of like Sanders there. Madison was interesting too. So we'll take Sanders for tonight's mock. And that kind of puts me with two receivers, two running backs, quarterback, and tight end. Now I can just kind of hammer out wide receivers and running backs for the rest of the draft, and I should be fine. I feel pretty confident in Mahomes and Kelsey. So, Thomas says, thanks for K9. Also felt I couldn't pass on the Josh Allen value. Was a good value. Getting Josh Allen there at the 4.1. And yeah, typically, like if I had my regular start here where I go double wide receiver, I'd probably take Kenneth Walker right there at the 3.11. Like that, when I first saw him available, it was like the first player I thought about taking because I love him at that value. But how am I going to pass up on Mahomes there? Like generally, my draft here would probably be Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jalen Waddle, assuming Tommy took Garrett Wilson, Kenneth Walker, DJ Moore. But we got the Mahomes stack tonight, so whatever. Let's see. David, I'm the opposite. I'm planning on going 3 running backs in the first 3 rounds and draft like 5 wide receivers, maybe a tight end. Yeah. Well, it just depends where you draft from. Like, in the first round, I'm only taking a running back if Bijan, C-Mac, or Eckler are on the board until we get an update on Saquon, who I had as like a late first rounder potentially beforehand, but now we don't really know what's happening. So I don't really feel like there are any other running backs I want to take in the first. I think all those other guys are fine in the second, like everyone who went tonight, and even Breece Hall or Ramondre Stevenson, even Gibbs. You want to take one of those guys in the second, I don't care. But for me, generally speaking, in the second round, I'm probably targeting a receiver because I really like look at all the receivers who went in the second. I really like tonight. St. Brown, Waddle, even Adams, Olave, Higgins, and Devonta Smith. So I also just think there's better mid-round running back value. I mean, Swift at 5.3, White at 5.11, Cam Akers at 6.11, Monty at 6.8. I don't value running back as much as I used to. But I certainly value names like Bijan, C-Mac, and Eckler right now. But also, like I said, I mean, these second-round running backs, there's nothing wrong with them. And even just about everyone who won in the third round, like, you can get any of those guys as your RB2, I don't have a problem with it. So, I don't know. There's so many different approaches you can take. In terms of roster construction, I don't think that any of them are necessarily wrong. And it also depends on where you're drafting from, the sequence of the draft, who you're drafting with, So, like I said, I mean, the end product is what it is, then there's nothing wrong with it. What do you think of Devonta Adams this year? When do you think is a smart pick to take him? I mean, I'm not... Devonta Adams definitely difficult to evaluate right now, right? Like, we had, like, the Jimmy G spook. No one wanted to talk about Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, we're all scared of Garoppolo not being out there, whatever. And, like, now I don't know how worried I am about that situation compared to before. And obviously, Adams was able to produce with Carr last year compared to having Aaron Rodgers before. So, I don't know. I just think when I'm looking at that tier of wide receivers, there are wide receivers who bring more upside to the table. But it's tough. Like, I went Waddle over Adams tonight. I don't think that Adams is a bad pick over Waddle. I don't think that Adams is a bad pick over Wilson or St. Brown. Probably not taking him over Lamb or A.J. Brown. But, even like Chris Olave in that mix, if your conviction lies with those other wide receivers, I think that's fine. I'm not worried about Devontae Adams. I just think his ceiling's going to be lower this year. At the same time, he was your wide receiver 3 in full PPR last year. And he played pretty damn well with Jarrett Stidham as well. He's been a top 3 fantasy wide receiver the last 3 years. He's been a top 3 fantasy wide receiver every year since 2018 that he's essentially been healthy. 2019 he missed a couple games. So, yeah, I'm not super worried about him. But I just think that there's better potential upside elsewhere. So it's tough. When is a good time to pick him? It kind of depends on your own conviction. Like I said, I'm probably not taking him ahead of A.J. Brown or Lamb. And I think that Garrett Wilson, St. Brown both bring more upside to the table. And I really like Waddle this year. Waddle was your wide receiver 7 last year. I like Olave a lot. It's just a tough range. But if you prefer Adams over any of those wide receivers, I don't have a problem with it. Thomas says, felt like I reached a little on Pacheco, but he wasn't going to make it back. Yeah, like we were just talking about, if you're sitting there at really the 1.10, 1.11, 1.12, or vice versa, the top 3 picks, there's probably going to be times throughout your draft where you're going to have to reach on players. So I don't have a problem with going Pacheco there if that's who you prefer, looking at that tier of running backs. JSC, my top 5 fantasy running backs for 2023. Bijan, C-Mac, JT. Those are the guys I feel will be top 5 at the running back this season. No Eckler. I still have Eckler in there for sure. If you want to put JT in there, I'm fine with it. Top 5 is kind of tough to call right now. Bijan, C-Mac, Eckler. I'm good with those, no particular order. The next 2 are tough. If Barkley plays a full year, I think Barkley's fair. Taylor's fair, but like Chubb, Henry, Hall, Stevenson, all those guys could be in there. Jacobs, Gibbs. Why not? And someone we're not really expecting is going to creep up at least into the top 10. Walker, Etienne, Dobbins, Rashad White, Pacheco, Monty, Swift. Someone will make it in there. Giovanni, what's up, bro? My keeper this year is Kelsey, which will cost me a second-round pick since I drafted him at that spot last year. Top 10 players will be drafted in the first. Who would you target in the 3rd round? That's tough. So you're going. Let me think about this. We talked about this last night. You're going to end up with Kelsey. No. Yeah, Kelsey, and then was it Chase or Bijan in the 1st? That's kind of tough to call right off the top of my head who will be there and who won't be there by the time you get to the 3rd in a keeper league. You're saying the top 10 players off the board. It kind of depends on who you go in the 1st round. Do you go Bijan or Chase? Because that's going to affect whether you go running back or receiver in the 3rd round. But generally, if it's full PPR, I'm probably going with the wide receiver in the 3rd right there. JSC says, I feel Devonta Adams honestly too good. He'll overcome it. Yeah. Maybe I'm too low on Adams right now. Generally speaking, year after year, we see one of those stud receivers or running backs just get kind of overlooked. And then we end up regretting overlooking them, right? This is a weird draft for me. I'm going to draft Cortland Sutton. Just a weird draft for me. I was actually hoping Rashad Bateman would fall out. Tommy got K9 and Charbs. Nice, nice. Asher, don't know about Adams. He had his worst catch percentage since 2015. After his 5-week stretch of insane production, he also fell off like crazy towards the end. He had some good games towards the end as well. I mean, he had 34 points in week 17, 12 in week 18. I mean, it kind of depends on where you think the end is, because week 11 he had 33 points, week 12, 14, week 13, 37, week 14, 10. So, but the fact that he had over 30 fantasy points to Jarrett Stidham at quarterback probably should keep us at least skeptical, right? Oh, what is this team I'm drafting tonight? It's just so different than anything I ever do. What a weird, weird team. I kind of like it, though. Just my receivers aren't going to be fantastic, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, and JSC, when we look at the end of last season for the 49ers, their secondary was not good. Their secondary was not the elite part of their defense at all. Their secondary gave up a lot of fantasy points to opposing wide receivers through the second half of the season, especially. And I remember that week. I remember encouraging people to start Devontae Adams for that reason. He was still a number one target, and the Niners were giving up a lot of points to opposing fantasy wide receivers. So that part doesn't really matter. The part that is impressive is that Jarrett Stidham was playing quarterback, in that game, not Derek Carr. But I think he could definitely be quote unquote quarterback proof. I do think his ceiling will be a little bit limited because the Raiders are in a really weird spot in terms of where they are at as an organization right now. We're going to get an answer within the first couple of weeks of the season, I hope. Are they just going to start tanking or are they going to try and be a competitive team? And that's ultimately going to affect Devontae Adams' overall ceiling. And can Jimmy Garoppolo stay healthy? Do we have an update on Jimmy G? Let me see if I can. Nope. I guess we probably won't get an update until training camp actually starts. All right, so I just need to draft wide receivers. That's all I can really do here. I mean, I'm tempted to make some power moves here, but I'm just drafting wide receivers. Oh, I don't know if I'd be happy with this team, even having Mahomes and Kelsey. I knew my team was going to turn out weird because I never do this type of strategy. But it's just too hard to pass on those guys there. It's just not how I construct my roster on a regular basis. And the fact that Justin Fields went in the 6th tonight, T-Law and Herbert went in the 7th, Kittle and Pitts in the 6th, Waller and Goddard in the 8th, Ingram and Freiermuth in the 9th is not too crazy, but still very nice. Dolchich and Kmet in the 11th. Yeah. I probably would have been happier if I just stuck to my guns. But that's why it's good to run these mocks and get some different exposure. Switch up your teams, all that good stuff. Try out some different strategies. Why not? Why not? All right, 11th round starting to wrap up here. And we'll get into the final 2 rounds of the night. Kirk Cousins off the board. I'll go Romeo Doubs here. I need to look for receivers who could potentially be number 1 guys, or at least like security blanket number 2 guys, like Sutton, Lazard, Dobbs. So kind of tempted to take Rashee Rice there, just because Mahomes on this team, but I don't really want to do it. Sky Moore went at the 9.3 a little earlier than usual tonight. Like I said, I mean, this is a name that's going to be moving kind of around in ADP, probably up until August. Similar to like Greg Dulcich, doesn't really have a true ADP. Like, it just depends on when he's available or not available, and people want to take him. I would say another player that we've talked about, who in mock drafts doesn't particularly have like a true ADP, just kind of moves around, is Rashid Shaheed, who I'm going to take here at 12.2, but he could go like in the 9th round, the 10th round, the 11th round. Just kind of depends on the draft, right? Yeah, I thought about drafting Anthony Richardson here as well, but I just need receivers on this team. Doug, what's going on, man? Good to see you. All right. If you're in the 3rd rounds, who'd you draft if you're in the 3rd round if available? Harris, Gibbs, McLaurin, Drake London. I'll be keeping Kelsey with the 2nd and getting Bijan or Chase with the 1st pick. So, I mean, it just, like I said, it really depends on if you draft Bijan or Chase with that 1st selection. You know, if you go Chase, then I'm probably going Gibbs or Harris. And then vice versa. If you go Bijan, I'm probably drafting McLaurin or Drake London, but there might even be other wide receiver options that I like more available there. But I think, as much as I love Bijan, I don't know, man. I think Chase, Najee or Gibbs, and then or it would really be Chase, Travis Kelce is your keeper, then Najee or Gibbs is the better start overall. But Bijan, Travis Kelce, and then, in the 3rd round, there might be, like, I don't know, just kind of depends. Metcalf, DJ Moore. But I don't know. Like you said, it's a keeper league, so I don't know who's going to be there and who's not going to be there. Chase, Kelce, Gibbs sounds like a fantastic start. But I like Najee Harris as well. I don't have a problem with him. But you could also just go with another receiver there, go Chase, Kelce, and Drake London, and go running back like your next 2 selections. I don't have a problem with that either. So I think both starts are good. JSC, I'm really digging the wide receiver 2s, Brandon Cooks and Elijah Moore's value right now. I like where Elijah Moore is going quite a bit in mock drafts. Cooks, I'm a little bit more hesitant on, I guess, just because he's so much older. But I like Elijah Moore's value as well. I'm kind of surprised, like he is getting buzz, but I feel like it's not impacting his ADP too drastically. But at the same time, like that wide receiver room's pretty, it's pretty loaded, so to speak. Like there's a lot of competition for snaps. I think DPJ is still going to have a good year. Obviously they went out and they drafted Tillman. Still got David Njoku. There's been reports that Nick Chubb's going to be more involved in the passing game, so we'll see what happens. Obviously, Cooper's there as well. But I like Elijah Moore. I agree. Is Breece Hall healthy? It's a good question. He's expecting to play week 1, according to himself. So I guess so. Yeah, Pollard and Hall. Kind of tough to really gauge where their health is at right now. Who do you think will blossom in Green Bay, Watson or Dobbs? I think both will be fine. They're very different styles of wide receivers. I think Dobbs is going to be that kind of like reception guy, security blanket. There's been reports he has good connection with Jordan Love already. I think Dobbs is going to have, Dobbs is going to be more of like your PPR style receiver than Watson's like that boomer bust guy. I like Watson, and I do think he's the wide receiver 1. but I do think he'll have more of a boomer bust aspect to him from a fantasy perspective and could end up being a better flex option. Dobbs might be more consistent, but I would rather draft Watson. Like, don't get me wrong, with what we saw last year. So I think both will be fine. I think both can be productive. It's just going to depend on, what level of play does Jordan Love bring to the table or not bring to the table, so to speak. All right, this last pick is like a complete dart throw. And don't forget about Jaden Reed in Green Bay as well. Let's go Isaiah Hodgins. Could go running back there, especially with Kamara on this team, but, whatever. Nick, I'm drinking a Waterloo. Sparkling water. It's what I always drink on stream. All right. Team review time. Let's do it. Let me know if you guys want me to take a look at your squad. Yeah, Waterloo, Black Cherry. Waterloo, if you're listening, you can sponsor me. People used to always ask me, what are you drinking? Are you drinking beer? People haven't asked in a long time. Do you think with this whole situation with Josh Jacobs, does he drop in drafts? Is he worth a third-round pick on? I mean, he probably still is, and yeah, naturally he has dropped back a little bit. He went at the 2.12 tonight. We have a lot of time for this situation to play out, so it depends on when you draft. If you're not drafting until the third week of August, I wouldn't be too worried about it. You just kind of plan for your mocks right now. If you're drafting a running back at that spot and Jacobs is there in the third, he's probably still worth taking. If you're not comfortable with it, Breece Hall, Ramondre Stevenson, Gibbs, Harris, Etienne, Walker, all went in the third tonight. I love all of those guys this year. So, still a lot of options if you're not confident in Jacobs. And even in the second, Pollard, Henry, Barkley, but if you're not confident in Jacobs, you might not be confident in him either. So, okay, Taylor at the 1.2. Let's do it. Lamar at 5.2 is a nice value. Freiermuth at tight end, you're good. Both quarterback and tight end. Breece Hall, Aaron Jones, Cam Akers, Jamal Williams, Jalen Warren. Pretty good running back room. Chase, Devonta Smith, love that. JSN, Elijah Moore, great values on those guys. Myers and Osborne are fine where he took them. Pretty good squad, man. I don't know why. I'm just not really there on Jalen Warren. I wasn't really there last year either. I think Najee's still the workhorse there. But, redraft does not hurt to grab a handcuff or committee player at the running back position towards the end of your draft. All right, so we're starting Lamar and Freiermuth, Hall and Jones, Chase and Smith. Probably as the season goes on, flexing JSN and Elijah Moore, but Cam Akers could certainly be in that flex spot as well. And quite frankly, Jamal Williams, Myers, and Osborne could sneak in there if needed. So, good roster. Yeah, I like this team. I mean, your first 9 picks are very solid. I like that squad, Taylor. All right, Nick at the 1.3. We got Hurts and Rodgers. Nice little combo. Pitts and Schultz, 2 quarterbacks, 2 tight ends. Bijan Swift, Javonte, Kenneth Gainwell. I can take that running back room and redraft. I like Gainwell behind Swift. I still like Gainwell in the 13th as well. Just in general. Wide receivers, Higgins, Debo, Juju, Sky Moore, Mooney. I mean, good wide receiver value throughout this draft, all things considered. I was waiting to see, you took 2 quarterbacks, 2 tight ends. Where did it really end up hurting you? But I kind of like this team. You got Hurts, Pitts as your starters, Bijan and Swift, Higgins and Debo. I do think in your flex, you have options here. It's kind of to take the season, a couple weeks, figure out who's really going to be the most stable options. But Sky Moore, Mooney, Javonte, of course, as long as he's healthy. Even Juju, if he has a low ceiling, still could be a safe floor player. Yeah, I think this team is pretty good. I mean, your team doesn't always have to, be, I don't know, jump off on paper and look, super crazy. If you go into the season and redraft with a good, solid roster between waivers and trades, you can do a lot with your season. So it's a good core roster for sure, man. Astra at the 1.8. Herbert in the 7th is beautiful. I'm fine with Waller in the 8th. And you guys will hear me say this like every mock. The injury history still scares me, so I might take like Higbee late, Conquo late, Jawan Johnson late. I don't know. Laporta, something, someone else. But Herbert in the 7th, great. Chubb, Najee, Penny, Damian Harris, Foreman, good running back room. Good value on those late round guys. Diggs, Judy, Ayuk, Addison, nice start there. Thielen and Jones. I'm fine with this team, man. Starting Herbert and Waller, Chubb and Harris, Diggs and Judy, flexing Ayuk and Addison. If you need some time to leave Addison on the bench, you've got a couple other options. Good team. I like the core roster a lot. And a good bench, too, for the most part. I'm not big on Thielen, but the roster looks good overall. I don't really care. So, all right, let's see here. Andrea. Fields and Ingram. Fields on the 6 is great. I like Ingram as much as I liked him, I don't know, before he got the deal. I've been big on Ingram all offseason, so I won't be surprised if his ADP starts to move up just a little bit. Dobbins, Pierce, Pirine, Jerome Ford. A little light at running back, but you can probably get through with those guys. Between waivers and trades. Lamb, Olave, Cooper. Nice start there. Burks, Mingo, Collins, Gallup. So pretty heavy wide receiver team with 7. I may have taken an additional running back just with Pirine being a committee. Dobbins. I think Dobbins is going to have a good year, but injury history could be concerning. Then Pierce just on the Texans, you know what I mean? Ford is basically a handcuff. You know, maybe go Singletary over Gallup. Just for example, but I can understand wanting the additional receiver as well. So, all right, you're starting Fields and Ingram, Dobbins and Pierce, Lamb and Olave, flexing Cooper, flexing Burks. Could also flex Pirine, and probably at least one of these wide receivers you drafted towards the end. So, solid team still. Core roster is very good. Those 3 wide receivers you started with, very nice. Dobbins and Pierce are fine where you drafted them. I probably like Rashad White, Pacheco, even Monty Nakers over Pierce right now. But I don't mind Pierce here. I don't have a lot of confidence in that offense. Do you think... Oh, wait. So I already read that question. Okay. Walito at the 1.7. Prescott in the 10th. If you're going late round quarterback, that's about as good as it gets. 201 at the 10.8. I also like that a lot. And Conquo in the 11th. I'm fine with that. I mean, Komet and Dolchich are already off the board. Probably who you have to roll with, right? Eckler, JT, Mixon, Singletary, Bigsby. Pretty good overall running back room. I mean, you're led by 2 studs, of course. Allen, McLaurin, Lockett, Evans, Cooks, Thomas. Whew. Very veteran-esque. But these guys could definitely show up for you. I'll take it. But generally, I probably want to sprinkle in, like, Zay Flowers over Brandon Cooks. Sky Moore over Mike Thomas. Although Sky Moore went a little bit early tonight. But just to get a sprinkle of youth in there, you know what I mean? But hey, I still think it's a pretty good roster. All right, we're starting Prescott and Chig, Eckler and JT, Allen and McLaurin. Probably flexing Lockett and Evans, but Mixon can certainly sneak in there. Cooks and Michael Thomas potentially. You know, you guys know I'm not big on Michael Thomas, but you know, realistically he could be in there. Yeah, good bench. You have some options at flex. Pretty good squad. It's just always like funny when I mean, naturally, this is what happens year after year in fantasy, but when you start to see teams like Keenan Allen, McLaurin, Lockett, Evans, Cooks, Michael Thomas, you just would have never been able to draft all those wide receivers on the same team like 2 or 3 years ago. You know what I mean? So, even Eckler, JT, and Mixon were all first-rounders last year, you know. All right, Thomas at the 1.12. We got Allen and Richardson. I mean, I like that. Kincaid and Johnson is fine. I mean, I like that you got a second tight end behind Kincaid. You know, I understand the Kincaid hype, but he's still rookie and historically rookie tight ends, you know. And Kincaid could be the anomaly. Don't get me wrong, dude's an athletic freak, but I like Johnson behind him, all I'm saying. Walker, Pacheco, Charles, McKinnon. I would be kind of wary of doing this because, I mean, on one hand, like if Pacheco gets hurt, yeah, you have McKinnon, that's good. Walker gets hurt, you have Charbs, that's good. But you just don't want to overexpose yourself into the same offenses. On the other hand, if the Seahawks and the Chiefs have the best rushing attacks this year, then you're in a really good spot. You know what I mean? But just want to be careful of overexposing yourself. You know, like, I don't know, even if you go like Kamara or Pirine over Charbs, A-Chain or Harris over McKinnon, just to give you a little bit different exposure, might be something to consider. Garrett Wilson, Amon-Ra, St. Brown, Dotson, Tony, and Pierce. I think you drafted good receivers throughout the draft. I kind of like this team. It's a little bit different, but I like it. You're starting Allen and Kincaid or Johnson, Walker and Pacheco, Wilson, St. Brown, flexing Dotson and Tony. So, pretty solid. I mean, McKinnon, Charbs, Pierce, Richardson, whichever other tight end on the bench. Yeah, I mean, I think going into the year that this build is fine. It'll probably change throughout the year, but it's still a good roster to go into the year with. Like, you're solid at quarterback and tight end. I think you got good receivers. And you have two backfields locked up at the end of the day. So, we'll take it. All right, let's see here. JW, what's up, dude? Late round QBs. We got Captain Kirk. We got Danny Dimes. I'm fine with that. Goddard and Higbee. I'm okay with that. ETN, Madison, Dillon, A-Chain. All good values. Brown, Adams, Ridley, Williams, Bateman. Yeah, that's a good team, man. I like this team a lot. Good late round QB tight end build. I mean, I might take an additional receiver or running back over Higbee, but at the same time, like, you got the tight end 12 and tight end 6 from last year, and we all know if Goddard didn't miss those couple of weeks, he would have finished as like a top 5 tight end probably. So nothing wrong with that. And with what we saw happen with tight ends last year, you know, if a starter got injured, you're like screwed basically. So I don't have a problem with it. So let's see here. We're starting Cousins or Jones, Goddard, ETN and Madison, Brown, Adams, flexing Ridley and Mike Williams. That leaves you with A.J. Dillon, Bateman, A-Chain, one of the two quarterbacks, and Higbee on the bench. I like this team a lot. Yeah. That's a good team. Just really good value throughout the draft, a well-constructed roster. It's a good squad. Taylor says Jalen Warren's going to take Najee's job. I don't know about that. But he's still a great handcuff. Still a great handcuff. It could happen, I guess. But Najee's going to be just fine, in my opinion. I still don't understand the Najee hate, but it's there. So, Andrew, have a good night. Thank you for drafting with us. Giovanni says Team 7-1 with Eckler and JT. Definitely a good start with those guys. Thomas secured at running back with both handcuffs. Kansas City high-octane offense. K9 or Charbs could be top 15. I mean, I think Walker can definitely be. And, I mean, the Chiefs are definitely a high-octane offense, but it hasn't necessarily favored the running back position overall. I mean, I like Pacheco a lot. I think McKinnon is good in the late rounds, but you know, just the way that offense is ran, it's really through the air, obviously, with Patrick Mahomes. But I just be a little bit hesitant about overexposing to particular offenses and redraft formats. I mean, if it's best ball, that's one thing, but at the same time, you know, like I said, if Pacheco or Walker go down, you immediately have their backup. But the only thing is it kind of limits your overall depth. You know, if you have exposure to different teams, that helps that out a little bit more. But I still like your team. So. Draft of the night, I actually think I'm going with your team, J-Dubs. I just like this squad a lot. I like this team a lot. But a lot of good teams, per usual. But yeah, it's my favorite team I went over. But there are a lot of... I mean, I don't know. I think I ended up liking the late round players on this team more than anything. I do wonder if you went quarterback early, which you could have switched here. If you went Fields at 6.3, I mean, that's a pretty big hit at running back. Still get Dillon or Gibson here. Goddard was a great value there. So I don't know. I mean, Cousins... I mean, Jones, your QB9, Cousins, your QB6 last year. I don't have a problem with it. But I'm probably going with J-Dubs as my draft of the night. Thomas McKinnon finished as one of the top running backs last year. It was RB20. I mean, weeks 14 through 17 were very good. 13 through 17, I should say. But, you know, 71 targets, 56 receptions. That's where he made the bank of his... I mean, he's basically like a wide receiver for him. But, I mean, through those last couple of weeks, sure. But I wouldn't say on the year necessarily. But even Pacheco was technically RB37 because Clyde Edwards-Helaire was actually good last year for the first 4 weeks of the season, if anyone remembers. I do because I traded for him. I don't want to talk about it. Let's see here. Giovanni likes team... Yeah, I agree, team 10. That'd be J-Dubs. Nick says... actually, I really liked your team as well, Nick. Good, well-balanced team. J-Dubs, are we worried about the holdout? Maybe. Let's give it a couple more weeks and see where we're at. I don't want to overreact just yet. Third round Saquon would be a nice ADP. Oh, let's roast my team. This is a weird build for me tonight. Let's go ahead and roast this squad. All right. Kelsey at the 1.11. Mahomes at the 3.11. Like, that is like... You're going to lose value elsewhere, which I definitely did with this team. But you make up for it with a top 5 at quarterback and tight end, as long as they're healthy, undoubtedly, you know? QB 1 last year, tight end 1 last year. So you really have to hit on the right wide receivers and running backs throughout the rest of your draft. Rashad White, Miles Sanders, Gibson, and Kamara at running back. I probably should have taken one more late running back because Kamara is going to get suspension. But oh well. I just hate not having options at wide receiver. Waddle, DJ Moore, Sutton, Lazard, Dobbs, Shaheed, and Hodgins. So really what I was looking at from the ninth round onward was like Sutton, a safe floor last year, should be a solid wide receiver too, not a high ceiling. Lazard, I think, will be in the same boat. Will have a safe floor, not a super high ceiling, but he's still going to get those receptions and targets from Aaron Rodgers. Dobbs, there's been reports, Jordan Love's favorite target. Watson's still going to be the guy, but Dobbs should have a good role within that offense. You guys know how I feel about Rashid Shaheed. I love him there in the 12th. Hodgins, like, you're taking a dart throw on who's going to be productive in this crowded Giants wide receiver room, including Darren Waller and probably Saquon Barkley as well out of the backfield. But Hodgins had a solidified role towards the end of last year. He got re-signed. Take my shot there. I actually liked Alec Pierce, who Tommy took at 13.12 there as well. So, yeah, there's a hit at wide receiver here. Really relying on Waddle and DJ Moore, who I do think both will have good years. But, yeah, you get a trade-off here. You know, really, even if you go like Jalen Hurts and like Mark Andrews early, like you're probably going to get some sort of swap in terms of value. But Kelsey, Mahomes, you definitely will. So it's an interesting team. I'm going to be starting Mahomes and Kelsey, White and Sanders, Waddle and DJ Moore. Then like anyone else could be in the flex. Gibson, Kamara, Sutton, Lazard, Dobbs, Shaheed, Hodgins. It would probably take a couple weeks to really find out who would be the most consistent. I think I'd probably be flexing Gibson and Lazard or Sutton. And, I mean, probably Kamara whenever he's there. So, this team could work, but it really, it depends on those late-round wide receivers. I'm not as concerned about running back, but I don't know. Just an interesting team. I never draft Kelsey in the first. Just felt like I couldn't pass on him, and I usually am not going quarterback in the third, but it just, how am I going to pass up that situation, right? So, I think fairly decent team, but obviously a big hit at wide receiver upside, so to speak. The depth is there, but I don't know what type of upside is there. So, J-Dubs, I'm thinking of changing my redraft league to 3 wide receivers, 1 flex. I think 2 flex is better personally, but I don't mind 3 wide receiver leagues. But I think having, majority of people, if you have a double flex league, are going to flex wide receivers, so I think you might as well just do that. Giovanni, I like where you drafted Kamara and Sutton. I felt like they were pretty decent value where I got them. Definitely wasn't planning on going with Kamara, but I just went for it. Sutton I was fine with there as well. I think ETN will be fine, J-Dubs. I think 3.10 is a good value to get him at. But that offense is going to be humming, so they might do some stuff with Tank Bigsby, but I wouldn't worry too much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I guess that does it for the day, for the night, I should say. Good little mock draft. Good drafting overall by you guys tonight. We're getting closer, boys and girls. Getting closer and closer to fantasy season. Can't wait for it. First, second, and third. Off the top of my head, J-Dubs first. Nick second. There's also a couple teams I didn't look at. Kind of like reverse this team. Tua, Dolchich, Pollard, Monty, Hill, Metcalf, Hopkins, Kirk. Both the Cooks, Davis, DPJ, and Wilson on the bench. I'm going to give reverse third place. It's actually a really good team. Might be second. Thomas, have a good night, bro. Everyone have a good night. I guess we were working on signing off there, so... Thank you guys for drafting with me, if you did draft with me tonight. If you guys are new to the channel, thank you for being here tonight. Make sure you guys follow us on Instagram, join our free Discord down below. And I should be back on tomorrow. I'll let you guys know on Discord. If not, that'll wrap it up for the night. So, everyone be safe. Have a great Wednesday. And I'll probably talk to you guys tomorrow. But if not, I'll talk to you guys Thursday. That'll do it for tonight. So, appreciate you guys, man. I really do. Cannot wait for us to be in August in full swing. Fantasy season. Headed into the year. We'll get there. But I think we're going to be pretty ready overall. So, all right, man. Love you guys. Love this community. Love the Catch fam. Make sure you guys hit the like, subscribe, do all that stuff. I'll talk to you guys soon. With that, I will say thank you guys so much for watching and or listening. And remember, you saw it here on the Catch. And